Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
The restaurant glowed with golden light, the scent of grilled steak filling the air. Tonight was meant to be perfect. Melissa's graduation dinner, a celebration of her hard work and bright future at Stanford. Justin raised his glass. To Melissa, for making us the proudest parents in the world. Applause followed, but my mother, Margaret, cleared her throat. We have an announcement too, she said, exchanging a glance with my father, Richard. A strange unease settled in my stomach. Margaret's lips curled into a smile. Your father and I decided Melissa's college fund should go to someone who truly needs it. The air turned still. I blinked. What? Richard sighed. Melissa has a scholarship. She doesn't need the money, but Bryden does. Melissa's face paled. You're joking, right? Margaret continued, unbothered. We've already spoken to the bank. A sharp rage cut through me. You what? Richard leaned forward. It's selfish to hoard money when family needs help. Justin let out a dry laugh. You mean this account? He held up his phone. We moved the funds a month ago. Margaret and Richard's faces contorted in shock. You moved it. Justin's smirk was ice cold. We anticipated this nonsense. Richard's fists clenched. How dare you? How dare we? My voice shook. You were going to steal from your granddaughter. Melissa's voice trembled. You really think Bryden deserves my future more than I do? Margaret crossed her arms. It's not stealing, Melissa. It's family taking care of each other. Justin leaned forward. Try to take 1 cent, and I will press charges. Richard stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. This isn't over. Margaret hesitated, then nodded slowly before following him. Melissa looked between us, her hands trembling. They actually would have done it, wouldn't they? I met her gaze, heart aching. Yes, sweetheart, they would have. 3 days had passed since the disastrous graduation dinner, but the tension still clung to the air like a storm waiting to break. I had hoped my parents would let it go, but deep down, I knew better. Justin was in the kitchen making coffee when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and frowned. It's the bank. A chill ran down my spine. Put it on speaker. This is Lisa from First National Bank. I wanted to confirm. Are you authorizing a withdrawal from Melissa's account? My heart slammed against my ribs. What? There's an older couple here claiming to be Melissa's legal guardians, Lisa continued, voice cautious. They're insisting the funds are theirs. I gritted my teeth. Margaret and Richard. Yes, Lisa confirmed. They provided outdated documents, but their behavior raised red flags. They became agitated when we refused the transaction. Justin exhaled sharply. Call security. Do not give them a cent. Lisa hesitated. They're demanding to speak to a manager. Let them, I snapped. Then have them escorted out. Minutes later, Melissa stormed into the room, phone in hand. Grandma just called me, screaming about disrespect and how we humiliated them at the bank. I clenched my fists. They tried to steal from you, Melissa. Her voice shook. I don't understand. Why are they doing this? Justin set down his coffee, his expression dark. Because they think they're entitled to what isn't theirs. The lawsuit arrived in a thick envelope, the return address stamped with my parents' lawyer's name. I expected underhanded tactics, but suing for Melissa's college fund was beyond even them. Sitting at the dining table, I skimmed the papers with growing fury. They claim they partially funded the account and are entitled to control it. Justin snatched the document from my hands. $3,000. That's their so-called contribution. Over a decade ago. Melissa's face paled. What does this mean? Can they take my money? I took a steadying breath. Not if we fight back. The courtroom was smaller than I imagined, almost suffocating under the weight of tension. My parents sat rigidly across from us, my mother dabbing at non-existent tears while my father clenched his jaw. Their lawyer stood. My clients made financial contributions to their granddaughter's education. They seek reimbursement or shared control of the account. Justin leaned toward me. This is pathetic. Our attorney, Ms. Reynolds, rose smoothly. Your Honor, my clients have provided records of every deposit into the fund, aside from a single $3,200 transfer over 10 years ago. The rest belongs entirely to Melissa's parents. She handed over a thick folder. The judge flipped through the pages, then turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Hathaway, your claim is based on one contribution. My mother sat forward. It was an investment in our granddaughter's future. The judge's expression remained unreadable. And yet, you are demanding full control of the fund. We deserve it, my father interjected. We're her grandparents. The judge sighed. Legally, this fund belongs to Melissa's parents. However, I will rule that the $3,200 plus interest be returned. The remainder stays untouched. Justin let out a breath of relief. My parents, however, were livid. My mother's face twisted with resentment, and my father's knuckles turned white. As we walked out, I heard my mother hiss, "This isn't over." A chill ran down my spine. She meant it. It started with a letter. A plain, government-sealed envelope sat in our mailbox, its presence an omen. I tore it open, scanning the words, IRS audit notification. My stomach dropped. Justin read over my shoulder. Someone reported us for tax fraud. His voice was sharp, incredulous. This is them, your parents. Melissa, sitting at the kitchen counter, looked up in alarm. Grandma and Grandpa. I exhaled shakily. They lost in court. This is their revenge. The next week was chaos. We sat across from the IRS investigator, a rigid man in a navy suit, his expression unreadable. He placed a thick folder on the table. An anonymous source alleged inconsistencies in your tax filings. Justin's hands balled into fists. This is absurd. The investigator remained unmoved. We will need full access to your financial records for review. It was humiliating. Every bank statement, every deduction, scrutinized. Worst of all, Melissa's scholarship was temporarily frozen due to the investigation. They knew, I murmured to Justin that night. They knew this would hurt her. His jaw tightened. Then we fight fire with fire. The next day, we met with Ms. Reynolds. We need to dig into their finances, Justin declared. She nodded, already flipping through files. If they want a war, let's see how clean their own records are. By week's end, we had what we needed: years of underreported income, unclaimed rental properties, tax evasion. The moment I handed the evidence to the investigator, relief flooded me. They wanted us ruined. Let's see how they like it when the IRS turns on them. When the official notice went out that they were under investigation, my phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I answered. "How dare you?" she shrieked. I smiled coldly. "Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing." Then I hung up. According to the results of the audit, we did not reveal more than one fact of income concealment, whereas my parents have had cases of tax evasion and understatement over the past 10 years. They were fined $2,700. The pounding on the front door shattered the silence. I jolted awake, heart hammering. Justin was already on his feet, throwing on a shirt. "Who the hell?" A voice cut through the night. "Open the door, Aunt Catherine." Bryden. I peered through the peephole. He stood on the porch, gripping a baseball bat. My blood turned to ice. "Call the police," Justin muttered, his voice tight. I did, hands shaking. Bryden slammed the bat against the door. "I know you moved the money. That was supposed to be mine." Justin yanked the door open a crack, keeping the chain locked. "Go home, Bryden." His eyes burned with fury. "You owe me. Your grandparents filled your head with lies," Justin said. "You were never entitled to that money." Bryden sneered. "I'm not leaving without it." He raised the bat. Flashing red lights illuminated the yard. Tires screeched. Officers spilled out, guns drawn. Drop the weapon. Bryden hesitated, then the bat clattered to the ground. They tackled him, cuffing his wrists. His face contorted in rage. They ruined my future. No, you did, I said softly. As the officers drove him away, I exhaled, tension draining from my body. Justin wrapped an arm around me. It's over. Melissa appeared in the hallway, eyes wide. Is it? I met her gaze. Yes, they tried everything, and they lost. The next morning, we learned the full extent of Bryden's mistake. The police charged him with attempted burglary and making terroristic threats. The university he had planned to attend revoked his admission. His future, once so carefully laid out, was suddenly in question. Yet, even after everything, my parents refused to back down. They defended Bryden's actions, calling the charges excessive and blaming us for pushing him to the edge. They even tried to convince the court he had only come to talk. But the evidence was undeniable. The security footage, the recorded 911 call, the sworn statements. This was the final desperate act of two people who had lost all sense of reason in their pursuit of control. And in the end, it cost them everything. As we sat at the breakfast table, Justin reached for my hand. No more looking over our shoulders. Melissa nodded. We can finally move on.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.